So we've given it to two cyclists, which is Sam Brand and Lizzie Holden. A couple of golfers, which is the Dawson sisters, both Anna and Leah Dawson. A professional boxer called Danny Roberts, and also Magnus Kelly, who's a young swimmer who is away at boarding school swimming.
And how does giving these athletes access to elite performance coaching, how big a help is that to them?
Well, I think there's a kind of paradox in sport that when you get to the very pinnacle of any sport, whether it be football, cycling, rugby, you get access to some great performance coaching, performance psychologists, sports psychologists, and all the assistance you need for your mindset. But actually the journey to that point is very difficult to get access to that. It's very difficult to afford that type of support. So what we've decided to do is create a scholarship where these young athletes, when they're at kind of a pivotal time of their career, specifically between 16 and 20 when they're transitioning into senior sport, they can access this type of coaching that perhaps they wouldn't be able to afford otherwise.
So Ed, how did you come to get involved in this?
The short answer is these two sat to the left of me. I think best say something nice about them for a change since they're in punching distance, but I think they're just sports fans. You know, I first met them 4 or 5 years ago now. I was riding for a cycling team called JLT, and they just wanted to help out, as they're doing now. They're both ex-military guys. I think they love a bit of teamwork, camaraderie. They're both sports fans, and they started working with the team. They started working with me for no personal gain. You know, they're successful business people, and they just wanted to help out and give a little bit back, which is what the scholarship's all about. And that's how I came into contact with them. Since then, we're doing a little bit more work, and they've touched on it already. But I've you know, even before I met these two, I was well aware of the benefits of sports psychology and positive thinking, and I was also well aware of how ruthless and how tough sport can be at elite level. And as they've already touched on the way up as well, even before you get to the top of sport, it's a difficult place, and it's life in general, isn't it? But I think in sport, it's very, very easy for particularly young athletes to confuse how well they do in a bike race or a golf tournament or a boxing match, and that has a direct correlation with their own sense of self-esteem and self-worth. And I think the younger they can get hold of the idea that they're not correlated and it's a separate thing, and you've got to be able to look at your sport in perspective. Yeah, the sooner they can get hold of that, the better.
How important is it from the Pro Noctis point of view to be giving something back?
Oh, it's massively important. We're very much a values-based organisation, and you know we do sell ourselves as a values-based organisation. And I think more often than not, you've got to follow that up with some evidence. So we have some really strong relationships and clients in the corporate sector and the financial services here in the Isle of Man. So we're spending a lot of time here, and that's how it all started. Really, the evenings and weekends in and around that day job, we were able to start coaching some of these young athletes, and the scholarship is a good way of sort of cementing that and bringing it together.
Is this going to be an annual thing?
I'm not. I think at the minute what we're going to do is set up the model so we can get it functional first. I think that's the first port of call, and for that to work, we've got to create something that becomes sustainable long term. Hence why we started with 6 athletes. In reality, we're probably coaching more than 6 athletes outside of that. There's a whole host of other athletes that we've been working with on a more of an ad hoc basis. 4 of the athletes of the 6 that's currently on this scholarship, we've been coaching for quite a while. One of them we've been coaching for 3 years now, Lizzie, the cyclist. So all we've done with the scholarship is formalise it and put some structure into it. And now what we need to do is get it functional. And what we'd like to do is once it is functional, is then grow it and sustain it.
And a big part of that for us is building the Isle of Man's capability. So we've got 3 or 4 coaches that will be working alongside us initially to the point where we'll be able to step away and just support the coaches, so that it's self-sustaining, that there's guys on the island being able to coach these guys with, you know, hopefully the level of knowledge and experience that we have.
Ed, when you were first starting in cycling, how helpful would this kind of scholarship been for you?
Oh yeah, if only I knew what I knew now. Not really. I think it's very tough as a young athlete, and like I said earlier, it's easy to base yourself of your sense of self-esteem and self-worth on how well you're pedaling a bike, and you know it's ridiculous really. You dress up in lycra and you race against 200 other grown men, and you know that's how you value yourself. So if you could have got hold of this at a young age, it'd have been absolutely very, very helpful. I first came into sort of sports psychology with Steve Peters. I was perhaps when they approached the Beijing Olympics. I had been 21, 22 years old at the time, and yeah, for me it was a real eye opener, game changer. And I don't know, people talk about it like it's some sort of voodoo or a black magic, but it's amazing how closely linked mental health and physical performance on the bike is. So I'm sure that translates to pretty much every sport out there, but it's like they're not separate things, they're both the same. So absolutely, the sooner they can get hold of it, the better.
There are maybe some people who see cycling as an individual sport, but how important is that whole team?
It's a strange one, actually, cycling. It's one of the few sports where you absolutely work as a team, but often it's an individual on the podium. Look at Mark Cavendish, for example. He's an absolute treasure around this place, and rightly so. And he's always very, very good at thanking his teammates, because he knows how much work, 6 or 7 of his close friends, his best mates and his teammates, so they'll literally sacrifice, I won't say sacrificing their careers, because that is their job. They're paid to carry his bottles, carry his wheels, push the wind out of the air for him, and ultimately deliver Cav at the key moment, 200 metres to go. And everyone plays a part in that team, and everyone plays a part in the win, but it's Cav that stands there on the podium. So it's a strange sport for that. It's a little bit different on the track, fortunately there's 4 guys in the team pursuit, and all 4 of us will stand on the podium, for example. But yeah, it is a difficult one. And again, it wouldn't be easy for a young rider to accept. If you're a domestique, you're a workhorse in a cycling team, and everyone wants their time in the limelight. So again, it just highlights how important this thing is.
You did some Madisons with Cav, I think, quite early in your career. Did you know then what he would go on to achieve?
You know what? There was always a bit of a spark about Cav. He turned up to the academy, and he must have been 6 or 7 kilos overweight, and he'd been working in a bank in the Isle of Man. Yet he still had these, like, physically, even then he was overweight, and he hadn't been training, and he'd been doing his thing. Yet he still won more races than the rest of us put together. And then once he was in a good place, and he was training, he had his lottery funding, he didn't need to work, he just went from strength to strength. And I always knew he was good, but to answer your question, did we know how good he was going to be? No, I don't think anyone knew. And when you think about Cav, everything he's won, the classics, the Tour de France stages, and for a long time, I'm a good mate of Cav, so perhaps I'm a little bit biased, but I don't think I am. I think he was the best all-round cyclist in the world. When you talk about people say Cav can't climb, Cav could climb. He won some impressive races.
San Remo.
Milan San Remo. He went over. That's right. He went over the last climb with the best. The last climb with the best 20 climbers in the world, and then, inevitably, made them look like snails in the sprint. So he's he's a good person, and he's a fantastic cyclist. Yeah.
You talked earlier a little bit about sports psychology and the impact that has. One of our other cyclists, Pete Kenyuk, is just taking a break because of mental health. How important is it to have that side of things sorted, particularly early in the career with all the pressure?
Yeah, it's got to be one of the most important things. I can't comment on anything to do with Pete. I don't know his personal circumstances, but hopefully he's in a happy place, and I'm sure he's made the right decision. But it does highlight the need to be on top of your mental game. You've got to be happy doing what you're doing, and it can be difficult. It's potentially even more difficult when you've got, I won't say conflict of interest, but if you're trying to be a good family man and you're also trying to live out of a suitcase 200 days a year and race in foreign countries, I can imagine it's not particularly easy. It highlights how important it is. It's everything. It literally controls the hormones which affect directly how good you are at pedaling a bike, which is something strange to get your head around. But and again, I've said this a couple of times already, but the sooner you can start taking this on as a junior or a youth and make it part of your training, if you like. We spend hours and hours and hours talking about the physical makeup of an athlete, and you'll spend hours and hours and hours talking about the tactical makeup of your team and how you're going to do it. It's particularly in team sports like football or rugby, for example. But still, there's the psychological aspect of it is, I think, carries at least as much weight as those two areas, but is rarely given the same amount of time.
What are your plans over the next year? We're just over a year until the 2020 Olympics. Will you be going for gold number 4?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the big plan. I want to go out in style in Tokyo. It will for sure be my last Olympics. I'll be 35 then, so I'm already the old man of the team. But we're doing well. We've just come away from the World Championships with a silver medal behind the Australians, and that's a good thing. We've been here before. We know what we need to do, and we're in a good place, honestly. I'm enjoying this last cycle more than I've ever done, to be honest. I've got a great coach, great strength and conditioning. I'm in a happy place. The team's happy. So we're just going to keep working towards that goal, and if we get it right on the big day, let's just say we'll do our best.
What is the plan for after cycling? Could you see yourself going down the coaching route?
You know what? I think the thing I'm most excited about right now is setting up a bit of a cycling academy. It's, when I think back to when I was a kid, I just enjoyed riding my bike, and I still do. After 2020, I think it's highly likely I'm ever going to race a bike again, but for sure, I'm going to play mountain bikes, and I'll ride around on a BMX, and I'll just enjoy riding a bike. And I think more and more these days you see kids with iPhones and iPads in their hand, and I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, not at all, and they seem to enjoy it, but I don't know, wouldn't it be nice if they got out on the mountain bikes once a week and had a bit of banter with their mates? So I don't know, it'd be nice to create a bit of a, almost like you see kids meet up, every town, every village in the UK's got a Sunday league sort of thing going on. So, if I could work towards something along those lines with cycling, that'd be great. Kids on bikes having fun. Great.